When my daughter told me our Paris trip was canceled, I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she had too much on her plate. But a few hours later, her fiancé's mom called, thanking me for letting them take over because of my supposed health problems. Health problems I had never mentioned. I quietly replied, "Of course, enjoy your trip," and hung up. I had no idea that my next move would completely unravel their carefully planned getaway and teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I've always loved traveling with my family. For me, trips weren't just about seeing new places, they were about creating memories that we could carry for a lifetime. My daughter, Madison, or Maddie as I call her, has always shared that same love for exploring. She's thoughtful, organized, and a little cautious, but that's always been part of her charm. Maddie has always been the planner in our family. She loves making lists, finding the perfect restaurants, and researching every little detail of a trip. She says it helps her feel in control, but I think it's her way of showing she cares. I've always admired her dedication, even if it sometimes made me feel like I couldn't just relax. Her fiancé, Ryan, is quiet and polite, the kind of guy who avoids conflict and lets Maddie take the lead. I like him. He's considerate and has a steady, calm presence. But I've noticed he sometimes struggles to speak up when it matters, letting Maddie make all the decisions. It's clear they love each other, but occasionally I worry that she gives in too much, even when she shouldn't. Then there's Ryan's mother, Karen. She's a very polished woman, always appearing gracious and charming. But I've learned over time that beneath that facade, she likes to manipulate situations to suit her own plans. She has a way of making people feel like they're doing her a favor, even when it's really the other way around. I'll admit I've never felt entirely comfortable around her, but I try to be polite because Ryan and Maddie are important to me. This year, Maddie had been dreaming about a Paris trip for years. She would spend hours talking about the art, the cafes, and the quiet streets lined with history. She's always loved the idea of walking along the Seine, visiting museums, and sipping coffee while watching the world go by. When she first mentioned planning a family trip to Paris, I was thrilled. I rearranged my schedule, saved up, and started imagining all the little moments we'd share together. As the trip grew closer, I noticed Maddie seemed a bit distracted. She wasn't as excited about packing or discussing the itinerary as she usually was. When I asked if everything was okay, she smiled and said work had been stressful. I tried not to worry. After all, she's responsible and capable. I trusted her judgment. At the time, I didn't realize those small signs were hints of the storm that was already brewing behind the scenes. Little did I know. Our Paris trip would soon be tangled up in misunderstandings, half-truths, and decisions that would test our trust and patience. Looking back, it seems silly that I didn't see it coming. But when your heart is full of excitement for a trip with your child, it's hard to notice the subtle signs of tension quietly building. I thought everything was on track for our dream vacation. I had no idea that the moment Maddie called to cancel, that was only the beginning of a series of surprises that would leave me questioning not only her words, but the intentions of everyone around her. I never expected a simple phone call to change the way I saw everything. It was a late afternoon when Maddie called. I could hear a little hesitation in her voice, something I hadn't noticed before. "Mom, about Paris. About Paris." She started, pausing. "Yes, honey," I said, trying to sound cheerful. I assumed she had some last-minute work issue, or maybe a small change in the schedule. "Well, I think we might have to cancel the trip," she said softly. My heart sank a little, though I tried not to let it show. "Cancel? Why? Is everything okay?" "Yeah. I mean, everything's fine. It's just work and some stuff with Ryan's family. You know how complicated things can get sometimes." I forced a smile in my mind. Of course, I knew that. Work deadlines, Ryan's family, obligations, they were all part of life. I didn't say anything more, trying not to push her. I wanted to trust Maddie, as I always had. But then, a few hours later, my phone rang again. The name on the screen made my stomach tighten. Karen, Ryan's mother, Lisa. "I just wanted to call and thank you," she said warmly. her voice dripping with the kind of sweetness that can make you feel both appreciated and uncomfortable at the same time. "Thank you for being so understanding about Paris. We know it must have been difficult for you to step aside, especially with your health issues and everything." I froze. "Health issues?" I echoed, my voice careful. "Yes, yes," she said, cheerfully. "You've been so gracious to let us take over the trip. I know how tiring traveling can be, especially for you." I felt my face go warm. I don't know what you mean, Karen. Not. My health is fine," I said, keeping my tone calm but firm. "Oh, it's nothing serious," she replied, breezing over my words. "Just that it must be stressful for you to travel so far. Maddie mentioned it, and we thought it was best." I smiled quietly, hanging up without saying much. I didn't want to start an argument, but inside, my mind was racing. Health issues that everyone seemed to know about except me. Something was off. Over the next few days, I tried to brush it off, but I couldn't. Every message from Maddie, every cheerful text from Karen, felt and Karen, felt like it was layered with secrets. I started noticing little things. Maddie's sudden busyness, Ryan's distracted glances, Karen's the top friendliness. One evening, I decided to confront Maddie gently. "Honey, can we talk?" I asked as we sat at the kitchen table. "Sure, Mom," she replied, avoiding eye contact. I don't understand why Paris is canceled." "I want to know the real reason," I said softly, my voice steady but carrying the weight of concern. Maddie looked down at her hands. "Mom, I just didn't want to upset you. Things. They got complicated with Ryan and his family. I thought it would be easier if we just didn't go." I nodded slowly, keeping my tone calm. "Complicated how?" She hesitated. It's... I don't know how to explain it. I just thought it would be better this way. Everyone has their opinions, and I didn't want to deal with arguments. I wanted to reach out, to hold her hand, to reassure her, but something inside me was telling me that this was bigger than a simple misunderstanding. There was a tension that neither Maddie nor Karen had admitted. The next call from Karen confirmed my suspicions. She kept talking about how thoughtful it was that I understood the situation, how glad she was that I had taken my health into consideration, and how perfect it was that the family could handle Paris without me. And I listened, nodding along quietly. But inside I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in years, frustration. I realized then that this wasn't just about a trip. It was about honesty, about respect, about how far some people would go to manipulate situations without considering the feelings of others. It wasn't long before small misunderstandings started popping up everywhere. Maddie would say, "Mom, don't worry about it. It's fine." But the tone in her voice told me she wasn't being entirely truthful. Ryan would avoid eye contact whenever Paris came up. And Karen. Well, she was always cheerful, but that cheerfulness felt calculated, like it had an edge I couldn't quite place. I started noticing little signs, messages deleted too quickly, brief mentions of health concerns. I never expressed, even the way they talked around me as if I wasn't listening. It was subtle, but enough to make me uneasy. I began keeping quiet, observing, letting them think everything was okay. Inside, I was forming a plan, not out of anger, but to see the truth. I had to understand what was really happening before making any decisions. Every text, every call, every glance was a clue. And the more I watched, the more I realized how carefully this web had been spun. I remember sitting on my porch one evening, looking at the sunset, thinking about all the Paris trips. It imagined with Maddie. I had pictured us laughing, taking pictures along the Seine, exploring museums. And now that vision felt almost fragile, like it could shatter at any moment. It hurt to feel so excluded from something that was supposed to be a family adventure. I wanted to confront them, to demand honesty, but I also knew that patience would reveal the truth better than anger ever could. So I stayed quiet, pretending to accept their story. As the days passed, I realized something else. The more I let them underestimate me, the more I saw the cracks in their plan. Maddie was nervous around me, Ryan hesitant, and Karen, oh, Karen. She was overcompensating in her attempts to seem polite and thoughtful. Each interaction, each phone call, added another piece to the puzzle. And then came the final straw, an offhand comment from Maddie that didn't match what I knew to be true. That was the moment when I knew this wasn't just a small misunderstanding or a scheduling issue. There was a lie at the center of it all. That lie was about to unravel everything, and I had to decide how I would respond. Would I confront them immediately, or would I wait until the perfect moment to reveal what I knew? The tension was growing every day, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. Every evening, I replayed conversations in my head, remembering small inconsistencies and half-truths. Each one seemed insignificant alone, but together they painted a picture that Maddie and Karen clearly hoped I would never notice. By the time the day of the trip was supposed to arrive, the rising tension had become unbearable. I had learned enough to understand the dynamics at play, but not everything. And I knew that the next moment, the turning point, would reveal everything. It was a quiet Thursday morning when I finally decided I couldn't wait any longer. The tension had been building for days, and I needed answers. I picked up the phone and called Maddie. "Mom." "Hey," she said, her voice carrying a nervous edge I hadn't noticed before. "Maddie, I need the truth about Paris," I said gently but firmly. "I feel like there's something you're not telling me." There was a long pause. I could almost hear her heart racing on the other end. "Mom, okay, I'll tell you," she whispered. "But please don't be mad. I just want honesty, honey," I said softly. And then she said it. It's Karen. She didn't want us to go. Cool. She said it would be easier if you didn't come, she told me. She told me you weren't well, and that you'd be too tired to enjoy the trip. I felt my chest tighten. The words sank in slowly, like a stone dropping into water. Karen had invented health problems I didn't have, problems that were never mentioned, never real, and yet were used to manipulate both Maddie and me. "Mom." "I didn't know what to do," Maddie continued, her voice cracking. "I didn't want to argue, and I thought it was easier if we just canceled." I closed my eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. My mind raced, piecing together the last few weeks. Every phone call, every text, every polite smile from Karen. It all made sense now. The careful way she had orchestrated everything, the little hints and suggestions planted. In Maddie's mind, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't. "Easier, Maddie," I said quietly. "Not for you, not for me, not for anyone. Because the truth always comes out eventually." Her silence on the other end was deafening. I could feel her regret, her guilt, and, strangely, her relief that someone finally knew. I thought about how this trip wasn't just a vacation. It was our time together, our chance to create memories. And all of that had been put at risk by someone else's selfish manipulation. I remember sitting back in my chair, staring out the window at the garden I loved so much. The sunlight fell softly on the flowers, and I realized that the anger I felt wasn't just at Karen, it was at the situation, at the way honesty had been twisted into a tool to control others. But I also realized something else. I had a choice. I could respond with anger, or I could respond with calm and clarity. I could let this break me, or I could use it to show Maddie and even Karen that deceit has consequences. I picked up my phone again, thinking carefully about my next move. I called Ryan first. "Hi, Ryan," I said. "I know you're caught in the middle, but I need you to hear something. Your mother told Maddie things about me that aren't true, health problems I don't have. She used it to stop us from going to Paris." There was a pause on his end. "Lisa, I didn't know," he said finally, sounding shocked and uncomfortable. "I'm sorry. I really didn't know." "I understand," I said, keeping my tone calm. "But I want you to know that I'm not someone to be underestimated. Lies have a way of catching up, Ryan. I hope you'll remember that." Next, I turned my attention to Karen. I had to handle this carefully. A direct confrontation could backfire, but I also wanted her to understand that I wasn't naive. Karen, I said when she answered. I heard about the story you told Maddie. About my health, about why I shouldn't come on the trip. Oh, Lisa, she began, her voice faltering slightly. I was just trying to be considerate. Considerate, I interrupted gently. You lied about my health to manipulate the situation. That's not consideration. That's control. And it won't work on me. There was a long silence. I could hear her trying to find words, but nothing came. I'm not angry, I continued, my voice soft but unwavering. I'm disappointed, because the truth could have avoided all of this. But I want you to understand one thing. Honesty matters, and it will always matter more than appearances. She didn't respond. I hung up, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. Relief because the truth was finally out, and sadness because our family's plans had been unnecessarily hurt by deceit. Later that day, I sat down with Maddie and Ryan. I wanted to make sure they understood the bigger picture, not just about the Paris trip, but about trust and respect in a family. Maddie, I said, I know you were trying to protect me or avoid conflict, but lying doesn't help anyone. It only makes things worse. I want us to be honest with each other, always. Tears welled up in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Mom, she said softly. I didn't want to upset you. I never wanted to hurt you. I know, honey, I replied, pulling her into a hug. I know, but from now on we face things together. No secrets, no half-truths. We can handle anything if we're honest with each other. For the first time in days, I felt the tension start to lift. It wasn't fully gone. The Paris trip was still canceled, but something more important had been restored. Our bond. The lesson here wasn't just about a vacation. It was about trust, respect, and knowing that manipulations, no matter how carefully planned, can never replace truth. That evening, I reflected on everything. I realized how strong Maddie had been, even while she was caught between her mother and her fiancé's family. And I realized how calm, patient, and careful I needed to be to navigate this situation. Not just for myself, but for the people I love. The turning point wasn't just the revelation of a lie. It was understanding how I could respond to it with dignity and grace. And in that moment, I knew one thing clearly. No one would ever manipulate me or my family again without knowing that I see the truth, and I act on it. After that day, the house felt quieter than usual. It wasn't a bad quiet, but one of reflection, like the kind of silence that follows a storm. I spent hours thinking about the past few weeks, replaying conversations, noticing how small details had built into something much larger than a canceled trip. Maddie, Ryan, and I didn't speak much immediately after the confrontations. Muddy, but there was a new energy in the house, a sense of honesty that hadn't existed before. I could feel Maddie's guilt and relief, Ryan's uncertainty but growing support, and, somewhere underneath, Karen's stunned silence. It was as if the truth had cleared the air, even if the Paris trip itself couldn't be recovered. I realized something important that day. Forgiveness doesn't always mean forgetting, and it doesn't always mean giving someone the chance to repeat their mistakes. Sometimes forgiveness means understanding and choosing how to move forward in a way that protects your own peace. Maddie eventually came to me one evening, sitting down with a hesitant smile. Mom, I just want you to know. Ma, I've learned so much from this. I didn't want to disappoint you, and I hated lying. I promise I'll never let anything like that happen again. I reached out and took her hand. I didn't took her hand. Honey, I know you didn't intend to hurt me. I know you were caught in a situation you didn't want to be in. But yes, honesty matters more than anything. That's what we've learned here. We talked for hours that night. Not about Paris, not about Karen, but about us, our family, our values, and how we could communicate better in the future. It was one of those conversations that left a warm glow in your chest, even after tears. Ryan joined us too. He admitted how uncomfortable he felt watching things unfold, feeling caught in the middle but unsure how to help. I never meant for any of this to happen, he said quietly. I didn't want to make things worse. I know, I said, but we all have to face the truth, Ryan. Avoiding it only makes things harder. As for Karen, I decided it wasn't worth engaging further. I didn't need her approval, and I didn't need to get drawn into another argument. Some people will continue to manipulate and control no matter what, and the only control I could take was over my own actions. I would continue to be polite and civil, but I would never allow deceit to influence my decisions again. In the weeks that followed, I noticed a subtle change. In Maddie, she seemed more confident, more willing to stand up when she disagreed with someone, and more open about her feelings. Ryan, too, seemed more present, quietly supportive in a way I hadn't seen before. The tension that had hung over us like a shadow slowly lifted. We began planning smaller tricks together, things that didn't require months of preparation or complicated arrangements. Muncher weekend drives, visits to nearby towns, quiet stays at bed, and breakfasts, simple experiences that allowed us to focus on each other rather than stress or conflict. And in those moments, I realized something. The destination doesn't matter nearly as much as the company. One afternoon, Maddie and I sat in the living room, flipping through a travel magazine. "Mom," she said, pointing at a photo of a street in Paris, "we'll go one day. But next time, we'll make sure nothing or no one can stop us." I smiled. "Absolutely, honey. And we'll go together, just like we planned. No secrets, no lies, just us." It felt good to hear her say it, and even better to know she meant it. I thought about the lessons we had learned. Honesty matters more than appearances. Trust is earned, but also fragile, and sometimes the hardest moments bring the most clarity. I also realized something about myself. I had spent years trying to be accommodating, trying not to upset others, sometimes at the expense of my own boundaries. This situation reminded me that being kind and empathetic doesn't mean being naive. There is a line between compassion and being taken advantage of, and I finally understood where that line is for me. Over time, even the memory of Karen, as manipulations became less sharp. I didn't forget, but it no longer held power over me. The family bond with Maddie and Ryan had grown stronger, built on honesty, shared understanding, and a quiet resilience that couldn't be shaken by lies. One evening, I took a long walk in the neighborhood, thinking about how easy it is to assume the worst when things go wrong. How easy it is to feel hurt, betrayed, or disappointed. But also how rewarding it can be to face challenges head on with clarity and calm. By the time I returned home, the sun had set, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. I felt a sense of peace I hadn't realized I was missing. Life isn't perfect. People make mistakes, but honesty, empathy, and resilience, those are things that endure. And Artesian. I hugged Maddie tightly that night, whispering, "We'll get to Paris, honey, and when we do, it'll be exactly how we imagined it, because we'll go together, and nothing can take that away from us." She smiled through her tears. "I can't wait, Mom. Me neither." And in that moment, I understood the most important lesson of all. Even when things fall apart, love and honesty can rebuild them stronger than before. We had lost a trip, yes, but we had gained something far more valuable, a deeper understanding of each other, and the knowledge that no lie, no manipulation, and no obstacle could break the bond between us. Sometimes the most painful moments in life show you your own strength and the strength of those you love. And I knew, without a doubt, that whatever challenges came next, we would face them together, honestly and bravely. As I sit here now, thinking back on everything, I realize how much this experience taught us, not just about honesty, but about the strength of family. Trips can be canceled, plans can fall apart, and people can disappoint us, but love and truth always have a way of bringing us back together. Maddie and I laugh now when we talk about Paris. We even make little jokes about next time, imagining all the streets we'll wander, all the cafes we'll visit, and all the photos we'll take. But it's not just about the destination. It's about the moments we share, the trust we've rebuilt, and the knowledge that we can face challenges together. Ryan has grown more confident too, quietly supportive and attentive. I see Maddie standing taller, speaking her mind, and knowing she can handle difficult situations with grace. And me, I've learned that patience, calm observation, and standing firm on truth can prevent manipulation from taking root, and even turn a painful situation into a lesson for everyone involved. Life isn't perfect, and families aren't perfect. We make mistakes, and sometimes the people we love don't make the best choices. But when we approach each other with honesty, empathy, and understanding, we create a bond that can weather anything. I hope that sharing this story reminds anyone watching that it's okay to stand up for yourself, to speak your truth, and to protect your peace. And it's okay to forgive, but remember the lessons learned along the way. If you've ever faced a situation where someone underestimated you, or where honesty had to fight through lies, know that you're not alone, and sometimes the strongest bonds come from surviving the moments that feel impossible. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our story. If it touched your heart or reminded you of your own family experiences, I'd love for you to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to hear more real stories that inspire, challenge, and touch the heart. Every story here is a reminder that even when life doesn't go as planned, love and truth will always guide the way.